Good afternoon, and thank you for tuning into my channel, Just Business. Furthermore, thank you for watching my very first video. Now, before we get started, if you could subscribe to my channel and like this video, it'd be greatly appreciated. Now, I don't want to bore you with long lectures on the economy. I don't want to overfill your head with theories, terms, and graphs, charts, what have you. But I do want to give you somewhat of an insight into how the economy works, and for that I'm going to have to give you at least two different terms which I'd like you to try to remember so you can follow along with me and ascertain this information effectively. Now, of course, what we're going to be talking about is the minimum wage. Should it be raised? Is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Well, this video will hopefully shed some light on that question. Of course, there are proponents for both sides of the argument. It's almost nearly split. Half for raising the minimum wage and half not for it. Some people think it's a bad idea. Some people think it's a great idea. Looks good on paper. However, in order to understand what kind of implications this will have on the economy, we first need to understand one major concept, and that's the law of supply and demand. Now, there's a lot that goes into this, and I'm not going to, again, bore you with a long lecture. However, I'm going to give you the skinny on it, the cliff notes, give you the rundown. So essentially, the law of supply and demand states, the more something costs, the less of a demand there is for it in the economy. The less something costs, the more of a demand there is for it. The more something costs to produce, the less a business wants to supply it. The less something costs, the more a business wants to supply it. So, supply and demand, they work together, and they can be represented on a graph, sort of like something you would see on in one of your mathematics courses. In just a moment, I'm going to give you a demonstration of what this would look like in terms of the minimum wage being raised on a supply and demand curve. Now, keep in mind, this will just be hypothetical, not based on any true numbers. It's just for educational purposes only. So, let's get to the paper. All right, so now I'm going to demonstrate for you on a simple supply and demand curve or graph, whatever you want to refer to it as. I'm going to illustrate for you how this would look with the minimum wage being raised. All right, you can get an idea of what I'm talking about here. So let's go ahead and draw our graph. Keep in mind this will be very crude, but it'll work. So right here we got P, that's representing price. Here we got quantity, or in this particular occasion it'll be, workers. Here we got price, be our minimum wage, $8.25. All right. Here we'll put 200 million, right? So right here we got our demand curve, which comes right through here. It's demanded. So at 8.25, 200 million workers demanded. Our supply curve intersects right there. So at 8.25, 200 million are supplied. So this is what we call equilibrium, right? Everything is fine in the economy. Of course, here you're still going to have your regular amounts of unemployment, which are just inevitable in even a healthy economy. Some unemployment is inevitable. So what happens if you raise that minimum wage? Say it's raised to $15 an hour. Right here you got a binding price floor. Well, this is what's going to happen. Now, this is a hypothetical situation. These are not based on any real numbers of the economy. This is just simply for instructional purposes only. So, let's say it's raised to $15 an hour. Well, what happens? Law of supply and demand states that at $15 an hour, demand will decrease. So it's going to go left along the demand curve and come to rest at this new location of 175. So 175 million people are now demanded at the new minimum wage of $15 an hour. So what happens on the supply side? Well, because minimum wage has been raised to $15 an hour, well, now you've got more people wanting to work, more people wanting to go into the job market to find these jobs, to make this amount of money. So the amount supplied is going to increase, and it's going to increase to the new amount of 225. All right? So now you've got 225 million people supplied in the economy, but you've only got 175 demanded. Well, this is going to create a little bit of a problem. And that problem is going to be right here, represented by this shaded area. This is excess supply. In this particular case, the excess supply is workers. This is going to be unemployment. Unprecedented levels of unemployment. Not included the regular amounts of unemployment, which you find in a healthy economy at equilibrium. But new unemployment, the difference of this number right here, well, you're going to have a lot of people in the economy not able to work, right? It's going to be an issue. Right, so as you can see, raising the minimum wage isn't necessarily a good thing for the economy in the long run. And it increases the supply of workers in the economy. However, the demand is not equal to the amount supplied. Therefore, you have, again, excess supply, which is unemployment in this particular situation. So, of course, it looks good on paper, but it's not necessarily a good thing for the economy. I think a lot of times people like to advocate raising the minimum wage for a couple different reasons. One, political gain. They want your vote. That's an easy way to tap into the wants and needs of the public. Young people, they're not necessarily educated or aware of this information, so they just kind of go with it because who doesn't want to make more money? Two, maybe the person who's for this policy, who's advocating for this policy, perhaps they're not educated on it themselves. Maybe they don't exactly know what kind of implications policy like this would have on the economy. So, again, it looks good on paper, but it's not necessarily beneficial to the economy in the long run. You'll have a lot of people wanting to work, not a lot of demand for it. Also, you'd have a lot of competition in the marketplace, more so than there is now. Employers would be more picky on who they hire. Because if I'm an employer and I have got to pay somebody $15 an hour because that's the current price floor, another definition for you to understand, price floor is essentially a binding price that you can't go below. So if the price floor is $15 an hour for minimum wage, you can't legally go below that. So if there's a binding price floor of $15 an hour and I'm an employer, well, I want to make sure that I get the best employee that I can possibly get. So if I got 35, 40 applicants, I'm going to weed those out quickly and pick the best ones. So previously in the economy, when minimum wage was only $8.25, an employer might not weigh so heavily on certain skills for an entry-level, non-skilled type job. But the same type of job, they're going to be more selective. They're going to be a little bit more picky with who they choose because you're going to want the best. And again, as the law of supply and demand states, there's not going to be as heavy of a demand for workers in relation to the amount of people who are looking for work. So that's it for the first video. I hope you learned something. I hope it made sense to you. If it didn't, feel free to comment. I can definitely try to explain it a little more. If you have any suggestions, if you have any complaints, discrepancies, please put them down in the comments below. I'll be sure to read them and get to them. Again, moving forward, I'll definitely put up more videos about the economy, about business, marketing, stocks, investing, budgeting, all that sort of stuff. We can definitely dive into a lot. Looks like we're out of time. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Please tune back in. There's a lot to learn in the world of business. We're just getting started.